y'all may have been hearing about this thing called Atheism Plus, which like started 2 weeks ago, although it's really been kind of burbling from the ground up for significantly longer than that. And a lot of people are asking, what is Atheism Plus? Like tangibly. Right now, tangibly, what Atheism Plus is an online forum. And you know, if you go there, there's a discussion group for people who are kind of already on board with the values and want to have conversations and plan action. There's also an educational forum for people who are like, it's what they say for people, where people can ask basic questions without, you know, and get civil responses. If you go there, there will be some people who can point you at some really good resources. We're also working at Atheism Plus on getting a library, you know, like an online library of resources. But really, if you go to any of the blogs that are, you know, the blogs or the organizations that are talking about this, Black Atheist America, what's the African American Humanists, they can also point you to some good resources.
And I guess I should plug Atheist Nexus to a horrible job as executive director. We have the same thing. There's a lot of subgroups that are unique to communities. One of the most exciting ones we have now is Former Amish, which has a couple hundred members in it, which is fascinating to me. But all these resources are great.
I'd say we need a consistent mental posture. With respect to science, we are aggressive, right? We will read and we will track down information. We fail to recognize that we live in cultural worlds, that science takes place within the context of cultural worlds, but we are not as aggressive when it comes to gathering information with respect to those cultural worlds. So the first order of business for me with respect to this is historical information. There are oodles of books available on Amazon related to these various communities. They're as easy to find as the books by Dawkins. Just as easy to find, but you have to have an interest in looking, right? So there are tremendous materials available on Amazon that relate to these very issues, that relate to these communities, and we are intellectual people, we are driven, we have capacity. It's not hard to find this stuff.
I want to add two very quick things to that. One, don't expect the person you're talking to give you the education. There's this sort of thing that happens, especially, you know, both online and in in-person communities, where, you know, you're speaking with a woman, you're speaking with an African American person, you're speaking with somebody, you know, who's, you know, working class or whatever, and you want them to give you the entire history of their marginalization in 25 words or less. That, you know, like Tony said, it's like a lot of these resources are out there. And the second thing I want to say is, Tony's books are available at the bookstore.
Thank you, first of all three for speaking, and the evil, wicked journalist that has to point this out. The evangelicals do it exquisitely. The black churches have done it quite well. I argue their utility is diminished. The gay rights movement has done it pretty darn nicely too, and had some great movies. I wonder if you agree that we cannot divorce this social justice and, you know, more inclusive aspect in our culture at large from the fact that these other successful movements have been political in their nature as well. We keep hearing how atheists are like herding cats and we're not all of one political stripe or whatnot, but motivating people to cast a ballot in a way that helps to support those things we want to talk about, be it at a school board level for those of us who are afraid our kids are going to turn out idiots, all the way to what happens this coming November. I would love each one of you to talk about whether or not you think that we need to stay as far away from turning this into a more political discussion than we have been doing, perhaps, maybe.
That's one thing that was in my talk that I didn't get to was in the 80s, it was a very clear, defined goal of the evangelical community to infiltrate every form of government. they weren't just targeting Congress and the presidency. We had meetings about how do you get in on the school board level? How do you get in to all these various realms and aspects? And they had a very clear agenda. I think, yes, you're right, we should get more involved, but the only thing we have to be careful about is to make sure that we're clear about what our goals are, so that we're not saying we're all libertarian, or we're all Democrat, we're all Republican, because we have to, come to unity there. One time you talked about the herding cats, I came up with this great idea. I thought on Atheist Nexus, I put a thing and said that we're not a herd of cats, we're a pride of lions. I thought that was so awesome, and then everybody chewed me out that I was militant and everything, so we went back to what it was.
I'd say a couple of things. The first is, from my perspective, we overestimate the political involvement of black churches. Most have not been involved in any substantial way. From the civil rights movement forward, the vast majority have not been involved in any substantial way. So, for example, you have the development of the Progressive Baptist Convention in the 1960s as a marker of the failure of the largest black denomination in the country, the National Baptist Convention, that can't get with the civil rights movement. Right? So there's been something, even within these church circles, that we typically call a kind of otherworldly orientation. Right? And it seems to me we often that churches have good PR. And we've bought it, and we've assumed they've really been more involved than they actually have been. I would think that we do need to be politically involved, but we need to be kind of mindful of our talking points. And it seems to me that in order to be effective, we have to do a bit more homework. That it's often been the case, based upon my limited experience, that we assume our acquaintance with science is all we need. Again, we don't have a sense of the cultural worlds in which people live. And in order to understand how the public arena works, we have to have a sense of the cultural worlds out of which people are coming.
So what they said, the very short answer, Jamila, is yes. Yes, I do think we need to get more politically active. And there's always going to be people who are saying, oh no, we don't have anything, to do with that, the dictionary, atheist, whatever. I'm about done arguing with those people. I feel like I've been spending years explaining why that's not true, and I feel like I'm about ready to say, fine, you go do your dictionary atheism. The rest of us who do want to get involved and want to get active, we're going to get on with it. And, you go do your dictionary atheism, the rest of us are going to do what we want to do. And if you want to participate, we can participate on things we have in common, whatever, but, and there's a lesson, again, that we can learn from the LGBT movement, which is a lot of, gay people would say, but not all gay, all gay people have in common is that they like to have sex with people of the same sex. Just like all atheists have in common is that we don't believe in God. But in fact, the majority of, gay people share some other political values, and we've been able to organize very successfully around those values, and we've been able to organize around just our own advancement. And I think atheists can similarly acknowledge that, most of us share a lot of common political viewpoints. We don't have to say every single we have to get 100% on board in order to move forward. And we can have the log cabin atheists, just like we have the log cabin, Republican gay people, whatever. I know, it's a long story. But the other thing I would say is that I think that political advancement and social acceptance kind of go hand in hand, and we're not going to get one without the other. And I think that things like the billboard campaigns and the out campaigns, that's part of it. It's not enough, but I think that in order to get political advancement, we need to be forming democratic clubs and doing lobbying and running for office. Hammett is one of the things that Hammett makes fun is run for office, run for your local school board, run for your local, whatever your city council is. But that goes hand in hand. You're not going to win if you don't get people to vote for you. So I think the fight for social acceptance and the fight for political rights go hand in hand.
If I may, just one more thing on this. We can learn a lesson from the civil rights movement. One of the failures of the civil rights movement was its inability to move beyond charisma, personality, and the preoccupation with heroes, right? This was a stumbling block for the civil rights movement after the killing of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. It seems to me we want to learn that lesson and begin thinking about different models of leadership that don't simply privilege charisma and personality, but that allow us to maximize what takes place on the grassroots level.